It's probably not that much.
You're live.
And so on. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Welcome to the October 15th meeting of the Finance Committee. Our first item agenda for this evening is approval of the minutes from the September 17th meeting.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of the September 17th, 2020 Finance Committee meeting.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye.
And
All those abstained?
that'd be me. 'Cause I was-
Okay, one abstention. Very good. Correspondence with the Board of Education, COVID-related expense request.
Yes. In your packet is a letter and a resolution I received from the Board of Ed, and basically requesting reimbursement of some expenses associated with the schools opening up for September to have students come back. So some of the costs associated with those COVID prevented measures. And basically, they're looking for the town to transfer money out of their non-reoccurring fund balance of about $230,000. Mona got a copy of more of an itemized listing of what those 230 in cost makes up, and I included it in an email sent out to the committee this afternoon. And basically it's related to capital and facilities related costs, upgrading ventilation systems, those shields for the desks, furniture for the kindergartners, and they needed to buy Chromebooks for the younger kids, I guess the first and second graders and so on. So that's how they came up with a $230,000 one. Now, Mona's been working with Chuck about the expenses and so on. So she could elaborate. She did get a bunch of invoices today, and what she thinks her strategy is as far as trying to get some sort of reimbursement from the state or from FEMA.
Yes, we do have all the invoices and if not invoices, purchase orders. Everything that's on that list is after July 1st. So it doesn't go into that first submittal that we've been talking about that we had sent in with the deadlines impact. So basically these type of things are not necessarily going to be FEMA eligible. However, they have a good likelihood that they could be eligible from the state OPM on the CRF. And we're waiting to find out how much funding will be available. OPM is, and I'll go on to when I do my thing on the FEMA update, they want to close out the first rounds through June 30th before they address what's available. So it looks like what the Board of Ed is presenting, that 230 will go directly as an OPM for reimbursement, perhaps at the 25%. If we could get more, then we'll do that.
So at this point, it's more putting the committee on notice that we got this request from the Board of Ed, and Mona and myself will probably be working with the board. But if we had to do something today, we provided $800,000 of funding for the roof project at Stevens. And it looks like that's going to be coming in around $560 for the roof and the art and for the roofing. So that would leave a balance of about $238,000. If we were going to have to do that, that's the only place that they'd have space or funding to cover this reimbursement. So we'll be meeting with them over the next few days or weeks to try to finalize what we're going to be doing with it. But there's no emerging no need to make any decisions tonight. It's more of an FYI. I think, Mona, just correct me if I'm wrong, but they do have grant money that they're supposed to be receiving. And
That's
they
right.
did receive the 194. We saw that, but we don't know if they received the,
The 219, it may be an allocation, but not received at this point.
So in terms of their invoices, do we have the ability to wait until we square up with all that? I mean, there's multi-level grants and offset payments that we're anticipating and hoping to receive. Is that something that we reevaluate, or are we on the clock to take care of any of this before a particular deadline?
Actually, we have to wait. We have to wrap up our previous portion that goes from the January through the June 30th. So the state has asked that we close that, as they're calling it, a project. The project ended on June 30th, so we close that project. And then we'll put in these since they're after July 1st. So the clock is not really ticking on that yet, although I can still enter the information and upload it, but it won't be submitted until the final reconciliation of the June 30th batch, which probably won't happen till the end of October.
Mona, two of the items on this list are basically full year expenditures, the substitute pay and the bus monitor increases that weren't expected. And that's about $330,000 worth of the increase. So I assume that's something that during the course of the year will determine if that materializes or doesn't materialize.
Right, and those ones, if you look at that itemized list, there's asterisks by some of them toward the bottom of that list. It's the asterisk items that will be submitted to FEMA/OPM. Those are the invoiced items. So those things like the substitute teachers, the bus monitors will not go submitted to OPM through us. Those type of items that are not asterisked would have been covered through the Education Cares Act or the CRF funds that they were receiving directly.
Okay.
So it's only those items such as the ventilation, the desk partitions, the barriers, the Chromebooks, and the kindergarten furniture. We'll be making the attempt on those.
Okay. And then on the second half of the equation, we had originally thought that 800,000 would be the roof. It ended up coming in at just under 600,000, but there's a reimbursement rate on that of, I want to say 60%, a rough number.
was it 46?
Okay.
Some close to the 50% range.
Oh, okay.
That would be money that they would, I think they're attempting to try to talk to the state on how they go about submitting for reimbursement. But if we get that money back in, then that money would go back into where the 230 back into the roof project. That would be the plan. But depending on these COVID costs, that somewhat is unanticipated, even though I think we knew something was coming. That could take up some of the reimbursement money if the costs continue to rise, I guess.
Right.
But the intention is if we get any money reimbursed from the state, we would put it back into that non-reoccurring with the idea of doing the next roof with that balance.
Okay.
So, sorry, just to make sure I'm clear on that. So the 560 is the total project cost, and then we'd be reimbursed for 40% or the 49 or whatever. Our reimbursement would be out of that 560. It's not that the project cost 800 and then the 560 is what it was after the reimbursement.
Well, in order for the board to apply for the roof grant, they had to get a commitment from the town to support the cost of replacing the roof. And I think we worked it down from $1.6 million to 800,000. And then when they actually went out to bid, I think the cost came in around this the 560 amount. So, so then in theory, we should submit that. And we have architectural costs, which were not part of the $800,000 number because it was work that was done prior to committing to the project. So we should be getting, I think it's 46% of those costs reimbursed by the state.
So the total amount might be something ballpark around like 300,000 once we add in the
Yeah.
architectural cost. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a lot better than 1.6 million.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah. And then, John, we didn't borrow the 800,000. That just came out of our budget. So it's not as though we need a,
No, we did a reallocation of balances
right.
in the non-reoccurring account. So we basically took the money we had reserved for the pool, and that paid for about half of it. And then we consolidated other school projects into that 800,000.
Okay, so this isn't.
So it was
something
all
we're
within the
paying
non-reoccurring fund. We didn't, it was nothing to do with the general fund and any 2021 taxes.
back. Okay, good. So we're not out 20 years on repaying these debts is where I
No.
was trying to make sure we're covered. Okay.
Just a question on the schedule, more bigger picture. So it looks like after grants received, there's 459,000 budget impact. Roughly half of that is the 230 that they're going to would potentially reallocate. How does the rest of the 229,000 or so get covered? Will there be additional funds you think coming in, or they're gonna have to just
I think
other
it,
budget?
I think it would be coming out of the board's operating budget.
Okay.
Okay, so John, just for clarification, we don't have to do anything on this tonight. It's really just informational that
Yeah.
maybe some reallocation of funds down the road.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was a draft 11B was or 2B was the draft budget resolution, but that was just to give us insight as to what that might look like. We don't have to advance that to the council.
I believe that's from the Board of Education.
Yeah.
meeting.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay. We all set with the Board of Ed informational piece? All right, then we'll move up for the update on the town side FEMA related expenses and reimbursements.
Okay. So we have a summary of where we are with our FEMA. When I was preparing this, we were at the point of about $77,000 from the through June 30th that we were submitting, and 57 through FEMA, the 25%, 19,000 through the state. We are accumulating for the 2021 fiscal year about 14,000. And I'd mentioned earlier that we won't be submitting that until the state wraps up the last fiscal year. I did have correspondence with the FEMA people yesterday, actually, and today. We've been on the phone and emailing back and forth that they've done another level of review. They've become, I guess, more strict when they're looking at the overall picture of everything submitted, and they're cutting back on what they're allowing for PPE. So they're doing basically the PPE, basically the sanitizer, gloves, masks, only if it was emergency protective measure. So it'd be more of the police, the ambulance, the fire. So a lot of the masks and dividers and so forth that we had for the town departments, we had to withdraw from the FEMA request. So for the town level, we had to reduce 18,000, and this is an estimate, 18,000 and about 4,000 on the ambulance side. So total about 22,000 that was reduced from the FEMA as ineligible because of that definition. I did have a conversation with the state OPM, and they've said that we can submit that 22,000 in and request a reimbursement from them at 100%, but we can't go over anything that they have allocated townwide for us. And I think at that point, it shouldn't be an issue for us, ideally. At this point, our allocation was at 70,000 for the year. Of course, we don't want to overspend that. There's the potential that anything unused can roll over into the next fiscal year. That may be what helps on the situation with Board of Ed. So that is our game plan at this point. What's holding us up at this point is the state requires a letter from FEMA to say that the review is closed, and at this point, letters aren't coming through quickly from FEMA. If that is the case, then we will be submitting just the $25,000 to FEMA for reimbursement, to OPM, excuse me. I do feel somewhat comfortable that we'll get this from FEMA, getting the award letter, since we're having close conversations, but they won't give me a guarantee that'll happen in 2-week period.
Mona, just, so our total expenditures on the COVID-related response, taking storm, I won't even try to say the name of the storm correctly. About 90, you did it better than I, about $90,000 of total expenditures before reimbursements.
Correct.
Okay, it's just interesting as you look at that, and on the Board of Ed side, it's over $800,000.
Yes.
Recognize very different animals, but number of students in the schools and everything else. But
right.
Wow.
Right.
I guess that's all I can say is wow.
Exactly. And you did mention Storm Isaias. Again, we had submitted that. We've got a bill for the chipping service. It was an estimate at that time. The invoice is coming in at a lesser amount. We are still waiting for our review, which will be a conversation with FEMA on the storm. That hasn't happened yet, so we're still at the pending mode with the FEMA people on the storm at this point.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether it's been officially declared a disaster area by the president. I think they totaled up the numbers, so Connecticut did qualify to submit for disaster relief. And I think it's still in Washington for a final blessing from, I guess, the president. So hopefully he will, because we have a lot of expenses associated with removing trees and the overtime work too.
Right.
And the reimbursement rate on that, assuming it gets approved, is it still 75% or is it 100%?
Not determined.
Okay. No, that is
Frightening.
kind of shooting blind. All right, so we'll wait to see on that. Other questions? No. Okay. Update on reserve for capital non-reoccurring expenditures through June 30th.
Initially in the packet was the schedule that's going to be in the audit report when that's released at the in December. I did email copies of how it stood after 3 months, and more in the format that was presented over in the past. So as you can see, it's sort of shrinking down a bit. A couple items was that we did spend $323,000 on the steps, so we're down to about 22,000, which is basically the retainage. Go on. We did reallocate that $200,000 that we didn't use in last year's budget, and we left in fund balance. Left in the non-reoccurring account. And then of that 200,000, 175 was allocated towards police body and car cameras. And we're hoping to get reimbursement of 50% of that 175 back. And if we do, that money will go back into this line item for either future purchases or reallocated towards other expenses. And then the other one was the school improvements. roof replacement at Stevens School. There's the $800,000 that was allocated for it July 1st. And estimated total cost for the roof replacement is $561,166. And that leaves that balance of 238, 834 that I mentioned that if we needed to, we had a gun to our head, we could take the money out of there to cover the request for the Board of Ed. And other than that, we're using the 32,000 out of sanitation Myra as money towards the grinding of the sand pits, wood chips. And we did complete the AV equipment upgrade in the town council chamber, and that was $171,000. You can see down below the Board of Ed projects are pretty slim. They do have money for remaining for an architect to design science labs at Griswold. The Rocky Hill High School sign, they requested a PO. That was more of a 50-50 deal between the Board of Ed and the football foundation to put in an electronic sign in front of the high school. And the last one is the architectural services used to design the roof replacement at Stevens. So one thing, just point out that so far for the first 3 months, we sort of committed $1.2 million to projects in the non-reoccurring fund. So that brought our remaining balance down to under $1 million. So the unforeseen expenses that we use the non-reoccurring to cover, hopefully we don't have any more this year, because we are kind of our reserves are being really whittled down in this fund. So that's the non-reoccurring fund story.
And some of these items will get to close. Like I see fire station 3, the roof, the handicap lift, the steps.
Yeah.
We'll get to at least cross those projects off. Like we think we're pretty much close to being done with those expenses, right?
Yeah. I think the roof is done. Probably just some retainage left. And then I think the lift has been more of a project than Phil thought it would be. And so there's still probably a few more expenses there, but those should be closed out in the coming weeks.
And the architect for the science labs, if they go ahead and do that, that's going to give us like an evergreen plan. Like that doesn't commit anything to us, because if we just had a surprise $800,000 expense, we don't know how much reimbursement we're going to get.
They've only used the service. They only spent a small percentage of the money they had allocated towards that service. And I guess it's more trying to get a decision on renovate what they have in place, or expand and build new labs, or expand out into the back and so on. So I think that project's been on hold for at least a year on deciding what to do with that. But as I said, we just have money for the architect's work.
And John, I guess there's just 2 comments. One, piggybacking on Chris, the Griswold Science Lab architectural piece. Obviously they haven't done anything with, but with not knowing what schools are going to look like in the next couple of years with distancing, I'm sure the Board of Ed will use their discretion on whether to move forward with that or rethink how that may be used, because it seems like smaller class sizes may become the norm, and configuration. So hopefully, we'll leave that to the Board of Ed to come back with a piece. John, from the finance side, and as you noted, we've already spent 56% of the non-recurring budget. How comfortable are you knowing that's kind of the contingency, and we're only 3 months through the year.
Well, surprisingly, a high percentage of that money is associated with the sidewalks.
Mhm.
And then most of the other ones, of money just being reserved for future expenditures like the elderly bus. We generally have enough money and they had to buy one outright, but we've been lucky to have getting grants to cover 80% of the costs. So as I said, it was nice and comfortable there when we had the $490,000 for the pool sitting there as a very good contingency. So we got enough to repair some minor expenses, like the one for $28,000 for the town equipment relates to one of the payloaders claw that needed to be replaced from age that we use for leaf pickup as well as during snowstorms. I think it's used beside picking up snow also to fix corners and so on. So it's kind of a tight reserve so that if we had anything too large, we would probably have to reallocate some of the funds around due to the importance. But most of it can cover minor repairs for parks related items and repairs and maybe repairs to some vehicles. But it's kind of tight. It'll be helpful if we do get the money back from OPM for the cameras for the police. So
Okay.
I don't think we've seen it go below $1 million in a couple of years.
Right. The only reason I'm bringing it up is we're 3 months into the year and we're at that lower number. And the last question, have you heard anything back on the body cameras, or is it just still pending?
I'd say the granting agency did email and said that they approved the grant and was sending him the request for the reimbursement. Don't know how long it'll take the state to process the request, but she did say that she was sending in the request, that she was satisfied with the application. It was moving forward. So I did get promising news just within the past week.
Oh, so we took a good gamble of saying we got to get everything in now. And
We did. We got it in time.
Okay, that's very positive news.
It is.
So, any other questions on this item?
No, we just gotta get lucky with winter and whatever the storm is coming up, the next one coming up.
I hope you
And,
we need another mild winter. State aid for municipalities, item 5.
Okay. Well, you may have noticed there is no activity on that schedule for this month. So we will have to stay tuned until October when we should be seeing some ECS and pilot money coming in. So that will be a short report, no activity.
And why don't we just keep going then through the monthly finance report, item 6.
Will do. First, we'll talk about the tax collector's report. And as we've been kind of watching and wondering what would happen, it's a great report, actually. As you can see, for the 3-month average, we're actually about 600,000 behind the benchmark. That was as of September 30th. Checked in with the tax office today, and they actually had collected close to the 600,000 already. And for a normal October, you'd collect probably about 185,000. So we're probably a couple 100,000 behind where we should be on a normal fiscal year. So we are coming in where we need to be for tax collections. So the deferral program, I believe, for the most part, is behind us. I think we were still seeing the concern about the collections on motor vehicle accounts. We compared some of the number of accounts to last year. It's still on the high side dollar-wise, so I think it should have an impact, but we're looking at probably about a $500,000 impact to nothing major, but we'll continue to watch that.
So I guess the positive word is the deferral program was successful from the town side, and hopefully it helped residents lessen the impact of job loss with COVID-19.
That's
The
right.
economy was put on a hold, so hopefully it was a positive all around.
Yes.
Or as
Positive, yep,
positive as it can be.
positive program, positive to the tax office. I think it went very well.
Good.
Next page is a overview of all other revenues, and for the most part, we're right where we need to be. Again, with the tax collections coming in at the 54%, that set the tone. Interest is not good. Obviously, that was at 2.9 through September. We've got a delay in statements, and through the end of September, some of the bank statements were not in. Even with that in consideration, interest would have been at 6%, which still is not great. But as we know, the rates are not good with the economy now as it is. Otherwise, I'd say we might want to look at the conveyance, which is at 45%. So we are seeing a positive impact of the economy as far as anything real estate related. So we're seeing an uptick on conveyance revenues. That will work in our favor, we hope.
Okay, yep.
Good. All right. I'll move on to expenditures. Expenditures, again, this is a first quarter, so we'd be looking at about 25%. Would be a nice mark to be looking at. So we've got, again, this was through September. Of course, legal fees is looking at as 0, but that's more of a timing issue that we do have some bills that are coming through. Let's see, what do we have? Oh, I'm sorry, it wasn't. Sorry, Don, I just said legal was 0. Probate was 0. That's the timing, but we do have the legal, which is behind at 16%. You may have noticed on central supplies, if you've looked in the detail, there's a large negative in there. That was for credit from the bank fees. We've just made a purchase on some upgrades, software related, that will offset in the next month. Otherwise, nothing too alarming that's jumping out. Board of Ed is through September, even though it's showing a 13.9%. I think we're getting accustomed to seeing that that's really for them more of 1 month of operation for a school year. They have, September, July, August is not a lot of expenditures. So overall, nothing standing out other than that.
Just one quick question on principal payments, interest payments. Look like we've used approaching half of the amount budgeted. Is that just the timing of payments just fell into the
Right.
calendar that way?
Yes, timing of payments. We just had one payment go out yesterday, actually, and we've got some coming up in February. So it's the timing of payments.
Thanks.
Yeah, we're trying to shift some of the principal payments to the second half of the year. So it's not weighted heavy in the July, August period. That seems like that was a lot of the timing issues that we seem to be making our payments in July. So we're trying to shift it so that it's part of in the normal world into our second round of real estate tax payments.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just a cash flow adjustment to time it with when revenue's flowing in.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the other item on here just is the contingency reserves. And I know that that's tied to retirements.
Exactly.
And, it looks like the number's on track. I guess it's an unknown how many employees are potentially retiring within the next 9 months.
That's probably hard to predict, but yeah, we're looking at, that was probably a couple of individuals, officers, and some of your long-term employees would maybe have more of the impact. We had like a 30-year employee, which would obviously impact the contingency more so than any of the other retirements. So I think you've got, that would look larger in this case because you had a larger retirement. So I think you don't necessarily predict them, but I think we're probably in good shape with that.
Okay. Any other questions? No? All right, so we'll go through our monthly legal bills. Item 7. 5, 6.
Yep, legal bills through August have been pretty low. I think part of it's being driven by the courts, I think, haven't been open or may have been slowed down a bit because of doing virtual meetings and so on. But our bills are very low so far for the first 2 months. And at the last meeting, we're talking about the solar case, where hopefully we're hoping the legislatures would put some sort of bill together that would sort of iron out this dispute between is solar panels taxable or non-taxable in a leasing situation. And but if they did have a settlement and we had to refund the money, our total exposure is close to $140,000. It's been going up every past couple of years. It started around 39, and the next year was 41. And I guess solar panels are getting more popular, so it's almost up to 59 this current year. So that would be the sort of so-called ceiling, that if they ever made an agreement that we pay back 20% or whatever, at least we have a ballpark number to work from. And the last one is the Coles case. I think they're still fighting the appellate court ruling. And so we'll probably still see some expenses associated with that in the coming months.
Any questions on legal? No. No? All right. Do we have anything for other?
Just that email I sent, Daniel's been working up the schedules for the subcommittees for 2021. And we put a draft in, I believe, for next year, primarily on Thursdays. Usually we try to schedule it the Thursday before the council, well, it should be the second council meeting of the month. So instead of saying it's always on the second, it usually could be on the third Thursday of the month. So that was just a draft, and let's see what you think. If we have some conflicts or something that we missed when we did our first pass, we can adjust and hopefully adopt a schedule in the November meeting.
Yeah, the thing that popped out to me wasn't so much the dates, was the 4:30 meeting time, which I don't know about everybody else, but I appreciate the hustle, but I just can't make it.
Oh, they caught us, Mona.
Yeah.
It's a good catch, Chris, because I printed everything, and I guess I didn't print the agenda.
Oh,
I would have to agree with Chris that we can't.
Okay, so
I know you all want to get home, but
oh, good try, John.
yeah, they do read our stuff.
Detail-oriented group.
So we'll put that back at 6. And
Okay.
No,
just
maybe
check
other
those
things-
Thursdays if there's conflicts or anything.
Yeah.
But again, it's usually always try to be the Thursday before the second council meeting of the month.
It looked good to me. I assume it's been vetted for holidays and things like that. It looked good. I mean, hopefully you guys have time to drive home and hop on the Zoom with the rest of us. I mean, who knows what it's going to be like until we get this thing sorted. So.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, usually Thursday's not a holiday unless the Patriots are playing.
And is there no November meeting in next 2020 because of the new council?
Next year is an election year.
Yep.
So generally you have the election on the Tuesday, And then the following Monday, that's when you do the swearing in. And so at that point in time, you're not sure whether committees would be formed or not at that meeting, but there is a scheduled council meeting in November. So the appointments could be given there. So it's more, this way, for sure, you'd have committees assignments made for the December meetings.
They're waiting to see if anybody runs on a 4:30 meeting platform next year.
I don't think we have anything to worry about.
Well, Chris may be okay with like a 5:30 a.m. having two young ones at
Oh.
home. He's probably up at crazy hours.
Might as well, yeah.
And Zoom does make it more flexible.
Yeah. I can't vouch for my appearance, but that might be a camera off meeting.
I'm not looking better at 5:30 or 6 at night, so it doesn't matter. All right, if we have nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good
Take
night,
care.
everyone. Take care.
Have a
Bye.
good night.
Good night.